Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Thursday night book club, The Power of One More. We are doing chapter 6 and chapter 7 tonight. These were really powerful chapters, really affirmed a lot of things that I think maybe you've heard already as you've been doing personal development in your business. But chapter 6 was about association. Oh, who do I need? um Chapter 6 was about association. Tova, can you just say something real quick?
Yep.
Thank
You
you.
there?
Thank you. Yeah. Um, and obviously we know the power of your inner circle, right? Like we talk about it all the time. He says, you are one association away from changing your entire life. And we say that too, right? In our business, we often say one conversation with somebody can change your whole business. It can transform the trajectory of your whole entire business in one conversation with one person. It can change it all. And so I completely agree with that. He talks about refining your friends, which it was a little bit, some things were a little bit hard to read, honestly, for me, because I think there's so many relationships we can be in where we take on this role of mentorship and this role of helping people and this role of doing so much for people, but really you're not getting any value added to your life from those relationships. I think there's a time and a place for that. Especially obviously if you are coaching your team, you just continue to pour out, and hopefully in return you are getting poured in as well. But he says your inner circle is critical. You have to cultivate your inner circle. You have to invest in your inner circle. Your relationships essentially define you, which is, it sounds a little bit dramatic to me. Like I'm like, my relationships don't define me. But really, if you surround yourself by, or if you surround yourself and you're always around negative people who gossip, who are not adding value to your life, who have nothing positive to say, and you know who those people are, you don't even feel yourself when you're around them. You feel uncomfortable. You know the conversation they're having is not really edifying to you or the people around you, and that can get really uncomfortable if you're living in that constant state of relational community. If that's what your community looks like, you need a new community. And he also talks about that. He says you're not an island, so we need people. It's not that we can't have people in our lives. It's not that we are not supposed to be in community with people. He's saying no, you definitely need to be in community with people. You just have to choose the right people. He says to succeed in life, your peer group standards must align with your standards. So if you have a certain standard of living, if you have morals and values that you abide by, that you're living by, but your community and your circle is not really living by those same standards and values, you're in the wrong circle. That's not the community for you. If it does not align, there's going to be major issues. He says that these standards need to be interchangeable. And so I think that was super powerful. You are the sum of your relationships. And what I also really had me thinking was that he also says you'll be judged by them as well. And I'm like, okay, I need to remember this chapter for when my kids are like bigger. Because this is like a chapter you want your kids to read, right? Like you have to be very intentional about who you're surrounding yourself with, because you will be judged by the actions of others. Which I'm not saying it's fair, but I'm saying that is the reality of situations. If you're hanging with the group of women that gossip about, the whole neighborhood or the whole church, or guess what? People are going to think you're doing that too. Um, so just know that that is so important, and that has to be in the standards have to be interchangeable. Um, Yeah, and this is a really another quote that really had me. He says, if you're not getting all the results you want in life, take a look at your closest relationships. So that one is also, oh, who in my life is truly sucking so much energy and so much of my optimism, or just so much of me that I don't have the energy to pour into other people, or invest in other relationships. Um, he also says not all lifelong friends or family members will end up in your inner circle, which is something that, once again, it's a little hard to digest, especially if you grew up with the same group of people, or you're very close to your family, but maybe those relationships aren't serving you. And he's saying, like, it's not always going to be the people you've known forever that you're going to want in your inner circle. I love the quote that I've heard this quote before, where it says, some people will be in your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime, and being okay with that, being okay with some friendships coming for a season. I've had that happen in my life, where I've had friends for a season and it was great for a season, and maybe things happened or dynamics changed, and that's okay. You don't have to resist that. And I like that he kind of normalizes that, right? Like, not every person you meet is going to be your best friend forever. And like I said, for me, as a very relational person, that's kind of hard to read, because I just want to be close to everyone that is wonderful, right? But it's not the case. Sometimes some people are just in your life for a season. Obviously, quality over quantity. We know that we don't need to be surrounded by, you know, 30 friends all the time. Same thing with your business. You get some quality people on your team, and that will be a game changer for you. You don't need to have, 50 to 100, level ones. Like, you just invest and pour into that, your core group that you're like, I see potential here. I'm going to keep investing here because I know that there's something here. And so that was the sum of chapter 6, which was really, really good. I'm going to just sum up real quick chapter 7, and then I've got some questions for y'all. So chapter 7 was One More Dream, which was really special because I love how much he talked about childhood in this chapter. He says the happiest people in life operate out of their imagination and dreams, and not their histories, which I was like, that's a quote that deserves a Facebook status. I think so many times we're operating from our past and the history of what was, and we're not allowing ourselves to dream about the future. It is okay to think about the future. I think sometimes thinking about the future brings on anxiety for some people. We're not saying worry about the future. We're saying imagine what can be. I've always said that our imagination is a gift from God. It's beautiful to be able to imagine. You can just close your eyes and you can imagine yourself on the beach right now. Like, what? That's amazing that we have the ability to do that. You can't live your best life if you're operating out of your memories, which, gosh, that is just so powerful. He says children are happier because they're in the right now. They're living in their present, and they have this ability to dream. They can be Batman. They can be anything they want to be. And it's so beautiful. And somehow we lose that, right? We lose that as adults. We lose the ability to dream, or we think it's silly. I used to think that vision boards were silly. I mean, I love being creative and I love art and all that stuff, but I was like, this is so weird, like doing a vision board. Like, I don't know if I want to do that, until I really realized how powerful it was to put some images together, to write some words of what you want for yourself in your future on paper for you to look at, for you to imagine. So if you haven't done a vision board and you really think it's silly, and you know, if you're that person right now, you think it's silly, I would say do it, because it can really shift things for you. Live outside of what you only know and have faith to believe for more. And I love how he ends up talking about this operating from our dream state and not our past state. I think a lot of us, we think about the good old days, right? And we're in the good old days, and the best days have not even happened yet. That's true. That can be your reality. We can't change what we're not aware of. So he talks about awareness. Just be more aware of your language, be more aware of how you talk about the future. If you think about the future and you only get anxiety, then you probably need to rethink how you're dreaming, what's your vision like for the future. Because if you only get anxious and it's only causing you stress to think about the future, then we've got to change some patterns. And he talks about how patterns lose their power over us when we only become aware of how detrimental they are for us. So realizing, what is this pattern? When I think about goal setting, I get sad. That used to be me. Sometimes I would think about setting goals and be like, it's just not, doesn't feel like that's going to happen. And so you get like this feeling of sadness because I don't know if I'm going to hit that goal, or I don't know if I'm going to get this promotion. But hit it, like literally set those goals anyway, because you can hit those goals. Like you can hit that promotion. But it's this pattern of thinking that it's going to cause you stress and anxiety that really keeps us in this past state. So he says, put your imagination to work. Putting your imagination to work will connect you to your inner child. And he kind of talks a little bit about that, which, if you've heard about this, it's a very, very big concept in therapy. You want to connect to that inner child. You want to see yourself as that child who had no worries, who believed that they could accomplish all they wanted to accomplish. It's on page 98, where I wanted to read this real quick. Because these are the things that sometimes get in the way of us dreaming. And he says, would people laugh at me if I did this, right? These are some things that come up when we're dreaming, imagining, setting goals. Could I lose friends or damage my reputation if I dare to do what I'm imagining, right? Should I conform and just do what's expected, even though it will make me unhappy? I know when I first started my business, I definitely thought about, what is everyone going to think of me doing that thing, and it held me back for a long time. That it doesn't have to be your story. And then just to wrap it up, I love how he talked about forgiveness. I thought that was super powerful. Says forgiveness, in which, if you're a believer, you know that this is true. I mean, this is the basis of our faith, is that we've been forgiven. And because we've been forgiven of our sins, we should be forgiving as well, and also share that grace with others. And so if there's things that you are not letting go of, or things you're holding on to, unforgiveness, he's saying that forgiveness will free you. And obviously that is biblical. Like, forgiveness will free you. You will be able to live a more free life when you're able to release these things, or circumstances, or people from this place of bondage. And it's going to allow you to dream bigger. And so there's so much to say here, but I'm going to go ahead and open it up now. Okay, so first question here is your inner circle making you better? And how can this question challenge your relationships you're in right now? So, is your inner circle making you better? And if the answer is no, how can this question challenge your relationships?
Okay, I'm going to start us out. So, yeah, my inner circle, I would definitely say builds me up. And I have found, for me, growing up, and it's probably a lot to do with my personality, I did not have a lot of boundaries with relationships as far as like, friendship. I just didn't have boundaries because I'm a person, I do not like conflict. I want people to feel included. And I almost felt like burdened to like, oh, that person needs, they need somebody and I need to be that. Nobody else is being that for them. And I really started when I stepped into Plexus with my girls and stuff, learning, okay, well, that's very detrimental to my health and that relationship's not serving me. And I've learned a lot from Natalie about just making some healthy boundaries and that it's okay that not everybody can be in your inner circle. And I think I had the biggest realization a few years ago. There was a person I had started to, she was in my neighborhood. And so I would start hanging out with her, but I'm like, man, every time, she leaves, I just feel like, that was the worst day ever. And she was so negative and gossiped and, it would go on. And I always just felt so exhausted. And when I was like, well, I have to be nice, she needs somebody. And when I learned to like actually make the boundary and like cut that person out and like feeling like, oh my gosh. And so your inner circle really does affect your mental health, your energy. I remember the first time I ever heard this, Tova said it, that if you have like $1 to spend every day, that's your energy. What are you spending it on? Because if you use a lot on a person or whatever, and you get to the end of the day and you don't have anything left, well, it's been spent. And so I realized like she was taking a lot of my money, a lot of my energy out of the day. And so anyways, being very particular of my inner circle, it's like a breath of fresh air. And sometimes I can even step in and just be, man, burdened by the day or something. But it's like you have those people that are going to be like calling you up and pouring into you, because that's what it is. And it's never like giving without adding back, it's like great. And so I think your inner circle, especially in this and like wanting to chase your dreams and all of this, your inner circle like is so critical. I don't know if I think I kind of got off, but anyways, yeah, that's been my perspective of the inner circle. It's very important.
Good. Yeah. And I've seen even for introverts, I saw this quote one time where it was like, it's not that you don't like being around people. It's like you literally cannot stand being around the wrong people that drain you. So, if you say like, I'm introverted, I don't like being around people, maybe you're just around the wrong people, because if you're around the right people, you won't feel like that drained, Anybody else?
I actually creating healthy boundaries kind of and having like the healthy people in your life in your inner circle. I'm working on it in therapy because like they said, like your family sometimes isn't meant to be in your inner circle. And it's so hard to not create, especially around your loved ones, like this defense mechanism of I love them, but it's one of those statements that I'm working on, because do I love my family members? Absolutely. But are they healthy for me in my inner circle? Probably not. And trying to work through those boundaries are so much harder than you think. And it's a very hard decision to like, okay, are they a part? Should they be a part of my inner circle? And this chapter really, as I was going through therapy, like this past 2 weeks, it's something I've really worked on and talked about, because this chapter really brought it out. And I thought it was just a very interesting concept of family isn't always meant to be there. And really creating a boundary is unbelievably hard, and not making like this like not allowing you to be defensive about it. Like, do I love my mom? Yes. But is she always the healthiest person to be around? Probably not. It doesn't mean she's a bad mom,
Right.
but it's for my mental health. You have to separate yourself.
Right. Yeah, that's so good. And I think that's I think we all have experienced that with at least some family members.
I totally agree, Emily. And I feel like with inner circle, like you have your inner circle and then you have a lot of rings around it. So sometimes you just got to move people to another ring. Like they're not gone, but I've definitely had some family members that have had to been moved out a little bit. Natalie always says it's something to this effect. No one is as invested in your dreams as you are. And so sometimes just people don't understand them and they aren't meant to. It's not their dream. But not that people need to earn their spot in your inner circle, but I think they need to, I don't know what the right word is for it, but like be adding value to stay there. Someone just doesn't get to stay there because they're there, kind of thing. And I would analyze when you leave situations, how does that person make you feel? And you know, some people that have been draining in my inner circle have like suggested self-help books to them and tried to like pull them into our side of things. And sometimes they'll come around and sometimes they won't, but I think you have to protect it. And I've been pretty good about being careful with mine, but I've watched some people who could have been diamonds 3 times over and they would not edit their inner circle. And these are people with strong personalities. And I've never seen someone be super successful in this business without a very supportive inner circle. So
just to jump in real quick, a lot of the times I've learned that it relates to them. It has nothing to do with what you're doing. And again, like it doesn't make them a bad person, but they need to self-reflect on themselves. And sometimes they just choose not to do it. And it's hard when you see it from the other side.
I have to relate to everything that you're saying, especially with family members or just being surrounded by people that you can either be around people that push you forward or you can be around a bunch of people that will suck you back in. And I've always said, I have never been so energized or so motivated or feel the healthiest around like my gym friends or my Plexus friends, because we have a drive, we have a motive, and we know where we're going. Now, I can very much recall feeling the worst days being at horrible like FRG meetings. These women are just disgruntled. They're mean. They're competitive. Where are my military wives at? Because you know what I'm talking about. You know what they are competitive. But they not all are bad, but there's a lot that I was just like mind blown. Or I would go down to, I can relate with Courtney saying the in-laws. I had family here that I truly thought was going to be the greatest time. We're going to have help. We're going to have connection. And I never felt welcomed in that environment. And I didn't want to be there. And I felt like I either had to pretend to be somebody else or leave that environment and be who I am. And I chose to leave. And it was probably the best decision I ever made. But it's really draining and it can change who you are to the core. If you allow it to, you will start to mentally think differently being surrounded by people. So if you have those instincts and this isn't really where I want to be, or I don't feel empowered, or I don't feel like pushing myself to another degree, get out, because that's not where you want to continue living your life.
Yeah. And I think the older you get, the more clarity you get, right? Like the older you are, the less tolerance you have for it. I used to be a lot more tolerant in my 20s than I am now in my 30s. Okay, next question. What are some qualities you need in your inner circle in order to feel like you are relationally thriving?
Hey guys, so I feel like, I was just talking to my husband about this, how important it is to have people who, what was the word I was saying? Like they follow through with things, like they're dependable. Like I almost canceled on a friend yesterday because I just wasn't feeling like myself, and I just didn't, because I just don't ever want to be undependable, because I can't stand that. Like you got to be able to depend on someone and know that they're serious when they say they're going to do something. I feel like that's just so important. And then just having integrity, like, because I feel like if they have integrity, they're going to be a good person. They're going to bring you up higher instead of drag you down with them. And then just, yeah, I feel like, obviously positivity, I feel like we say that all the time, but it's so true. Like, you got to be around positive people. And almost honestly, anyone who wants to do plexus with you, if they're not positive, it can kind of be a struggle. You don't have to be super close with them, but you can try and help them with that. But I feel like when you have friends who are doing this business with you, it's going to help you stay accountable, first of all, because they'll be on the book clubs with you. They'll be doing things with you instead of like on a Thursday night, you're out with friends and you realize, oh shoot, I was supposed to be on book club. Stuff like that. I feel like it's so nice when you do have those relationships in that inner circle that is doing this with you. It kind of makes it just that much better. So that's my thoughts.
That's good. I love that. Being dependable is so important. Anybody else? Qualities that you need.
I think it's really important for you to have a group of friends that allow you to be you, just your uncut self, whether that be a goofy laugh or you're forgetful. Just allowing you to be you is really important to have in a friend, so you don't get that feeling of being uncomfortable or trying to hold back. But it's really important to be able to just let go and be free.
I love that. Tiffany, I think you wanted to say something.
Yes, I'm here. So I think, honesty, trustworthiness, like just people that you really enjoy being around, the positivity, all of those things are definitely necessary. And, I wanted to say about just when it comes to, people in your business and your inner circle, I know like, at the beginning of my business, I was at a wedding and at breakfast, and I had family that had made fun of me. A sister-in-law that had told my mother I was going to kill myself and be anorexic from the products. And like, these were things that, like they could have derailed me, or you can tell people like, no, this is what I'm going to do. And, literally coming back from our 7th vacation, I think it was like our 5th time to Hawaii, like, imagine if I had listened to those people, and where I'd be. And so I think that it's important to know that sometimes you just have to move people around and out of that circle. That's what I wanted to say about the last question. And also that, that's okay. And a lot of that, oftentimes our family are some of the hardest people to, get on board. And I have found over the years that as family has watched me grow, and trust has been built even more through the products or the business, like they do come back, and they want to give the products or the business a try. It doesn't mean it's always going to happen, but I think having your mind open to that is so important. So I'm sorry my video is not on, y'all. Full disclosure, I'm literally sitting in my sauna right now, and you don't want to see me in my sauna. So I love y'all, but I thought I'd be out, and I'm like, I can't get out yet. So
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. That's so important. And I think, to wrap up this question, I think it's really important to, like, we all just heard what important qualities we want in other people, but really the qualities that we should also possess, right? Like, we should also be dependable. We need to be trustworthy. This is what, we need to allow people to be themselves and allow people to, really trust us. And so I think that's really important too. Okay, last question, then we'll wrap it up here. How can dreaming bigger grow your business? How can dreaming bigger grow your business?
This is a big one for me. So I did an entire team call on the mindset mastery thing, and dreaming is literally where it starts. So like anatomically, your parts of your brain, go back and watch that one if you haven't seen it. But Emily Gibson said something the other day, and it speaks to what he said about not dreaming from your history. She said, I want you to write your vision and dreams out with amnesia. So like if you woke up today and didn't remember anything that's ever happened and wanted to write all the dreams that you were going to chase, how would you write those versus how we actually write them based on our experiences? And I was like, oh yeah, they're different, right? It's different. So dream with amnesia is my.
Wow, I love that. One more. How can dreaming bigger grow your business?
All right, I'll jump in. So over this summer, like I kind of stopped dreaming a little bit and felt like my business was going backwards and I wasn't gonna accomplish the things that I wanted. And so then I just kind of took a time to reflect on that and really dream about building my dream house and then seeing everybody go to Hawaii and all that stuff. And it's actually made me push myself to work harder. Like if I'm not going to put in the time and put in the effort, those dreams aren't going to be a reality. And I was actually just talking to my hairdresser about that this morning and talking to her about being successful with social marketing. And I was like, the only difference between the people who are successful and who are on that trip in Hawaii and the people who didn't make it are the people who stopped dreaming and didn't push through the hard times. Like if you push through the hard times, you're gonna get there.
That's so good. Yes, Megan. And your hair looks amazing. Yeah, I 100%. I was just talking about that. How, on our recap call, like literally the only difference with the people that, quit is that they stop dreaming, and everyone that gets to go on these trips and really experience this side of the business are overcomers, just people that will not quit. And so don't quit, keep at it, because there is so much more available to you. And we were created to dream big. We were meant for this. So guys, thank you so much. That concludes our book club. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope you all have a wonderful night.